All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Altcoin Daily. I pulled a couple resources that I think are pretty powerful. I'm going to break down a couple charts that I think are pretty telling. And just overall, I want to continue my journey, my goal into providing you with as much insight into Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market as possible. Because one thing is for sure, the mainstream media isn't doing us any favors. And we'll get to that at the very end. So I want to start things off today by getting into this video right here. Well, actually, I want to go back to the beginning of 2019, and I want to talk about this. Do you remember the sentiment that was in the air in the beginning of 2019? A month before, we had just seemingly capitulated to 3,100. Many people thought we were going lower, including myself. Hey, we still might. But overall, I mean, even the biggest Bitcoiners around us, today I'm going to refer specifically to Murad Mahmudov, a very well-respected guy in the space. He's a trader, he's an analyst. You've probably seen him speak or many of his tweets before. So I'm going to share with you 3 of his tweets from the beginning of the year, early February, and then I want to compare that to what he has to say today. And this is really powerful. So just to remind you, Murad, he went on this Twitter tangent, and basically the point of it was this. Guys, this bear market will last much longer. Don't expect any massive gains until 23, 24. And another one of his tweets was, hey, the bottom is in. It's not. And he even shared this chart. He said, this is the only chart you're going to need. He tweeted this early February. He said, this is my rough view on what I believe is going to happen. Break the trend line before we can even think about having a bullish discussion. Patience is a virtue. So basically he was saying, guys, you think we capitulated? There's still more to fall. And don't even think about a possible bull run until we can break this trend line. So I want to switch up now to, he was just asked about these tweets by this lady. I'll leave a link to this in the description. I'm not sure. This is from a podcast. It's on Periscope. I'm not sure. I'll leave a link to all this stuff in the description so you can check it out yourself. But she asks him about these series of tweets. Very interesting what he has to say.
Scenarios. I want to go into a tweet that I saw a while back that you said, where you were kind of talking about how we haven't even bottomed out yet, and you were making the claim that expected to go even lower before we reach a bull market, and you predicted a bull market not happening until a few years out. Do you still fundamentally believe that, or have you changed your viewpoint on that at all?
Yeah, so I tweeted that in early February, I believe. I think there's been a lot of happenings since, obviously. I would say right now, I am 75% certain that we saw the lowest price already and it's behind us.
Oh, wow. That's a large claim. And what made you change your
I
view?
think I think this is the way I put it a couple of days ago. I think the bad news is that the bottom is in, but the good news is that we still have a couple of months until sort of the real bull market begins.
Yeah.
And I think sort of this middle of 2019 is a good way to start leaning into the market regardless in the grand scheme of things, because we have a very major 4-year bull run ahead of us. And 2019 is definitely the time to be investing. I'm pretty confident to say that.
That's awesome. I had one more question. Okay, so look.
Wow. Quite a change, right? And even if we take a look at this chart, you can see that actually we did break this trend line. So this red line right here is actually mid-April, April 15th. And according to him, we should have, at this time, we should have been below 3,400. But actually, right here, we're actually above 5,000 a little bit. So we did break this trend line. I do want to show you this. So I've showed you this chart before. Actually, Murad works with Willy Woo all the time, and this is Willy Woo's chart, Woo Bull charts. And this is Bitcoin price models. Basically, what I want to take a look at, I've showed you this before. It's the realized value. And the realized value, this orange line right here, it's compared to the market price. The realized value is the value of all the coins in circulation at the price they last moved. So in other words, it's an approximation of the value paid for all the coins in circulation. So right now, check this out. Whoop, how do we zoom in here? Check this out. We have just jumped above the realized value. Well, what does this mean? as I've showed you before, let's take a look at 2 other times in major bear markets where we jumped up above the realized value. So first of all, after the correction of 2011 going into 2012, as soon as we got back above the realized value, we dipped below it for just a little bit, but really we stayed above it for really the next 3 years. Once we got above it, we really stayed on it or above it. And then in the major bear market of 2014, you can see that once we dipped below the realized value, it acted as pretty strong resistance until we broke above it. We stayed above it. So here we are today, and we have just broke above it. This is surely a good sign. I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm cost averaging at this point. I've been cost averaging hardcore since 3100. Right now, Bitcoin, it's looking good. We're consolidating very near where we broke up to. I mean, our highs for the last few days are at 5,300, and we're consolidating really close to that. So this feels like when your dad comes back into town. When your dad comes back into town and he says he's going to stick around this time. He says he's going to stick around, and he's putting on a good show. Yes, and you want to believe him. You want to believe him. But this can't last. Eventually you're going to be let down again. So maybe it's just better not to get your hopes up. That's what it feels like to me. So probably sometime in the next couple weeks, Dad's going to say, "Hey son, I'm stepping out, gonna grab some smokes. Do you want anything?" But you both know. You both know that this can't last. The real test will be if we see lower lows. Finally, I want to compare where we are to 2014. As the rhythm trader says, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Bitcoin in 2014 price versus the current price. So this top one is 2014, and you can see here that we're still pretty close to how things played out in 2014. Are we going to see a gradual uptrend like in 2014? That remains to be seen. It kind of helps put things in perspective, though, guys. People who invested in 2014, I don't think it really mattered to them if they invested at 400 versus 200 versus 500, right? They were accumulating in this area, and eventually it paid off. Final thing, and this is eye-opening. Courtesy of CoinDesk, I thought this was a really good article. The media's cringeworthy coverage of Bitcoin's last price surge. So check this out. When Bitcoin rallied from 4,100 to 5,100, and as we've been staying above or close to $5,000, this is how many of the media outlets covered it. Bitcoin surges 15% overnight because nobody learned their lesson after the crash. Or Bitcoin jumps 20%, mystery order seen as a catalyst. Bitcoin surged overnight, and according to this person, it might have something to do with an April Fool's joke. It was an April Fool's joke. What a ridiculous market. So, just proof positive that just like back in 2014, the media is not doing us any favors. I think Bitcoin will come eventually to be seen as one of the best store of values that we've ever seen in this world, and it's going to compete with gold and fiat, and basically where people try and park their money now, whether it be real estate or bonds or whatever it is. Slowly, as each boom and bust cycle goes forth, we'll get more and more people, more and more poor people, more and more rich people, more and more institutional people parking just a little bit of their wealth in Bitcoin, just to be sure. And this is not something that I'm in for a few months. This is not even something that I'm just in for the next year. This is something that I hope is going to play out for the next decades. Anyways, I recommend you watch both this and this video. I'm going to leave links in the description. Let me know what your thoughts are, guys. It's going to be a great year. See you tomorrow. I appreciate you all.
I still think we're going lower than 3, but it's definitely debatable whether we're going lower than 2. I still think we will. What are your thoughts and why? And then we'll talk about some of the details in those metrics. So Murad, let's start with you.
Yeah, I took a glance at some of your work recently as well. I think you're a little bit too bearish. I think that we're not going below 2K, but we may or may not have already bottomed.